A new law firm has launched an investigation into WWE. Let's get into the details in today's Wrestling Ramble. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. As you're all probably aware of at this point, there's a class action lawsuit against WWE over not only Vince McMahon returning as chairman of the board, but bringing in 2 other executives, causing 3 other board members to resign, and using his Class B stock, his majority shareholding power, to change the bylaws of the company so that a sale has to have his final word. I wanted to read this article. This is from TJRWrestling.net. It gives a decent recap of this. It says, following the return of Vince McMahon to the WWE Board of Directors at the beginning of 2023, another law firm has announced they are considering taking action on behalf of company shareholders. Vince McMahon stepped down as WWE Chairman and CEO in July 2022 amid an investigation in him by the company's board over sexual misconduct allegations and payments of hush money to former female WWE employees. McMahon used his position as majority shareholder of the company to keep his retirement short as he strong-armed his way back onto the board at the beginning of 2023 before being installed as executive chairman. It later emerged that before he moved to get back on WWE's board, Vince McMahon had settled another claim that had dogged him for decades. It is believed that McMahon paid a sum in the millions of dollars to former WWE referee Rita Chatterton, who accused McMahon of in 1986. Several shareholders have already begun legal proceedings against McMahon and the company since his return, with Scott A. Fellows and the Detroit Police and Fire Retirement System filing lawsuits, claiming that McMahon had overstepped his authority. Bloomberg reported that a 3rd lawsuit related to the sexual misconduct allegations has been launched against McMahon. Carol Casale and Crystal Lavelle are named as having brought this suit, but no other public information has been made available. It is noted that Casale and Lavelle are seeking to keep their claims separate from the ones brought by the Retirement Fund and Fellows. Braunstein, Gewurz, and Grossman LLC is now looking into WWE's actions and announced they are investigating violations of the securities laws on behalf of company stockholders. The firm notes that their investigation centers on whether WWE and/or the company's officers and directors violated the securities laws or breached their fiduciary duties in connection with the above alleged misconduct. So there's a quick recap on the lawsuits against WWE. Now, Vince McMahon has settled the Rita Chatterton lawsuit as noted in that article, and he did, have the settlement payments for the NDAs. Will he end up settling this class action? That is to be determined, because this can be held up in litigation for years, and that's going to be a hindrance to selling the company if you've got a class action lawsuit attached to it. Now, going into the details on this new investigations right here on Business Wire, Braunstein, Gewurz, and Grossman LLC is investigating potential claims on behalf of purchasers of World Wrestling Entertainment Inc., WWE, or the company. Investors who purchased WWE securities are encouraged to obtain additional information and assist the investigation by visiting the firm's site, bgandg.com/WWE. The investigation concerns whether WWE has violated federal securities laws. On June 15, 2022, the Wall Street Journal published an article entitled WWE Board Probes Secret $3 Million Hush Pact by CEO Vince McMahon, sources say, which revealed that the board of World Wrestling Entertainment Inc. is investigating a secret $3 million settlement that longtime chief executive Vince McMahon agreed to pay to a departing employee with whom he allegedly had an affair, according to documents of people familiar with the board inquiry. The article further revealed, among other things, that the board's investigation, which began in April, has unearthed other, older non-disclosure agreements involving claims by former female WWE employees of misconduct by Mr. McMahon and one of his top executives, John Laurinaitis, the head of talent relations at WWE, the People said. On this news, WWE's stock price fell $2.31 per share, or 3.4%, to close at $64.87 per share on June 16, 2022. On July 22, 2022, Vince McMahon announced his retirement from WWE. Then, on July 25, 2022, WWE filed with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission a current report on Form 8K, which announced, among other things, that the company has made a preliminary determination determination that certain payments that Vince McMahon agreed to make during the period from 2006 through 2022, including amounts paid and payable in the future, and that were not recorded in the WWE consolidated financial statements, should have been recorded as expenses in the quarters in which those agreements were made. The unrecorded expenses, which, as of the date hereof, the company has identified unrecorded expenses totaling approximately $14.6 million. The report further announced that the company currently anticipates that it will revise its previously issued financial statements to record the unrecorded expenses in the applicable periods for the years ended December 31st, 2019, 2020, and 2021, as well as the first quarter of 2022. Finally, the report also announced that the company has also received and may receive in the future regulatory, investigative, and enforcement inquiries, subpoenas, or demands arising from, related to, or in connection with these matters. If you are aware of any facts relating to this investigation or purchased WWE shares, you can assist this investigation by visiting the firm's site. You can also contact Peretz Braunstein or his law clerk and client relations manager, Yael Nathanson of Braunstein, Gewurz & Grossman, LLC at 212-697-6484. Braunstein, Gewurz & Grossman, LLC represents investors in securities fraud, class actions, and shareholder derivative suits. The firm has recovered hundreds of millions of dollars for investors nationwide. Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee similar outcomes. So there is the latest on the investigation into WWE. This is a new law firm that's doing this investigation. Now, one thing that has been pointed out that I've also talked about in previous rambles is the main basis for class action lawsuits tend to be from losses, financial losses, to recover from those. So if you're a shareholder, if you have stock in a company and a decision is made and that causes the stock price to, let's say, plummet, or maybe just even drop a little bit, like it was pointed out previously, $2.31, whatever it was, then that's grounds for a suit and to get money to recover those losses. But if we look at WWE share price right now, it's sitting at, as of recording, $86.20, and it's been going up a good bit recently. It's shot up since January 5th. It was at $72, it was near $67, and now it's went to just above 90, and it's been floating around in the 80s, high 80s ever since. And his departure, Vince McMahon's departure, did not cause the stock price to go down. We've covered this as well and talked about the fact that when Vince McMahon resigned, the share prices went up. And since he's returned, the share prices went up. Now, both of those could have been people thinking that because with Vince McMahon coming back, obviously there's talk of a sale. That's the foregone conclusion. WWE is going to be sold. Somehow, some way, that deal will be done. Him leaving might have been the same case. Nevertheless, that's one issue I see with this class action suit is the stock price is doing better than ever. So there's not a case on that part. But the argument they're making is that they don't want him there because of not only the allegations against him, like what the Detroit Fire retirement system is saying. Their basic gripe was that because of the alleged misconduct, they don't think he's a good representation for the company. Fair enough. But the main gripe in general for the class action lawsuit is Vince McMahon coming back, forcing his way back onto the board, bringing in quote-unquote crony members, as they say, in Michelle Wilson and George Barrios back onto the board, and then changing the bylaws. That's their main issue. I don't know what you get if this was to be settled. I don't know how much they would pay out or what they would do, because you would think they're not really looking for money per se, but change. They don't want Vince McMahon involved. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know where this is going to go, but I also wanted to bring up this study that has to do with class action lawsuits. It says here, it's from TLR. A detailed examination of 8 years of consumer class actions in federal court found that consumers received only a tiny fraction of the money awarded in those cases, while plaintiff lawyers frequently claimed a bigger share of the settlement than their clients. At the median of cases studied, meaning half were higher and half were lower, lawyers representing the class were paid more than the class itself. The analysis by Jones Day attorneys confirms what several other studies have found. Consumer class actions tend to benefit the lawyers who bring them at the expense of the consumers they claim to represent. Other studies have found that companies pass on most of the cost of class actions to customers in the form of higher prices, lower product quality, and reduced innovation. In the words of an Emory Law School professor who authored a 2016 study on consumer class actions. For this latest study, Jones Day partners Darren Cottrell and Craig Stewart and associate Robert N. Stander looked only at class actions alleging economic loss from false advertising or other forms of consumer fraud. Such cases are particularly prone to abuse since there is no reliable way of determining who belongs to the class, and claims rates tend to be extremely low. Plaintiff lawyers typically recruit lead plaintiffs to represent class members, and when subjected to deposition, those plaintiffs sometimes display a lack of knowledge about the case or claimed injuries. In one lawsuit cited by the lawyers over the phrase "no sugar added," the lead plaintiff denied she was injured by the supposed deception because she always understood what "no sugar added" meant. In another case involving all natural chips, the lead plaintiff undercut claims he was injured by admitting he bought the chips because they taste good. Defendants nevertheless settle nearly every case that survives a motion to dismiss, and many more before they even get to that stage, simply to avoid the cost and distraction of litigation. The Jones Day lawyers started with 110 federal cases settled between 2010 and 2018, which they reduced to less than 50 after excluding cases in which there wasn't enough publicly available data to determine how many class members participated. Plaintiff lawyers know these numbers but rarely offer to make them public because of the extremely low participation rates. So the lawyers are going to be the ones to really reap the benefits of this class action lawsuit against WWE, not those that they are filing on behalf of. A lot of times class actions don't end up making it to court. They, majority of the time, end up settled, and if they do make it to court, a lot of times they get dismissed. So that would be logically what's going to happen. It will either be settled, or if it does end up getting to court, it'll probably end up getting dismissed. But if there are legal grounds to go after Vince McMahon for him changing the company bylaws and essentially forcing his way back on the board, maybe something can be done. But if I had to take a guess, I'd imagine this could end up getting settled just because they don't want to get held up in litigation. They're trying to get the company sold. But let me know what you guys think. That's all I've got. I'll see y'all later.